and welcome to Friendships That Flourish, the podcast, where we dive into the intricacies of building and nurturing meaningful connections that stand the test of time. Join us as we explore the dynamics of friendship, sharing inspiring stories, and uncovering actionable tips for fostering deeper and more fulfilling friendships. Today, guys, I am your host, Regina Nicole, your friend, your host, and today we have our friend on the couch, Lady Tyrah Starke, and I am super excited that she's joining us. Lady Tyrah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm excited for you.
Oh, thank you.
And this is so cool.
Thank you.
The setup, everything. I just felt like I'm in like a production. Well, I mean, it is, but like,
yeah.
This is like good. Love this for you.
This is definitely, I am definitely one of those people, where like, I do really well at supporting others. Yes. And so this is my baby, like literally.
And it's time for us to support you.
Yeah, for sure. Period. So I appreciate you taking out your time today, being here. So a little bit about myself and Lady Tyrah. I met Lady Tyrah through another friend at church. And so I don't know if you know this, but like just instantly I was like, oh my gosh, she's so pleasant. She's so jovial. Mm-hmm. Like I want to get to know her. So here we are. And obviously there's more to unpack and uncover. But, thank you for joining us.
Of course. You're stuck.
I'm stuck.
You're stuck with me.
So today we are going to discuss navigating long distance friendships and how to maintain those connections. So again, this is a topic I was mentioning earlier. I was like, I have, friends that live all over. And lately they've been asking me like, they'll say like, how can we support you? Or is there anything that we can do to be a better friend? I'm like, no, you're fine. And so I was telling Al earlier, I was like, I need to really think about my answer because more people have asked. So I'm like, okay, I need to really sit in that and figure out, what it is that they're asking of me.
Right.
So we're going to get back to that. Okay. I like to open up the show by asking, what does it mean to you to have a friendship that is flourishing?
Ooh. I think to me, a friendship that is flourishing means that even through all the changes of life,
for sure,
that we're still solid. No matter because, for example, I was the first one in all my friend groups. Well, I have several friend groups. So, okay, college, just life, local, whatever. But for majority of those groups, I was the first one to get married. So just like navigation of, okay, I used to be on the phone for hours, just on FaceTime.
Right.
Those friendships where y'all ain't doing nothing. Y'all just on FaceTime, wasting time.
For sure. Or
they
being productive, maybe. I don't know.
Like I'm watching Netflix. You may be doing your hair, and we're not. It's silent. Like we're not talking.
Like, you guys are like being companions for each other.
Yeah. And so, but when you get married, like you can't do that. Not right away.
I don't know because I'm not married.
You just,
so I'm listening. That's
you can't okay, just the hours of me like. And me and my friends, we be on group FaceTime literally for like 4 or 5 hours at a time, not doing anything. And so when you get married, like those changes kind of happen slowly. Like,
for sure.
Oh, I used to be on the phone with this person for 4 or 5 hours. Now I'm lucky to even get 30 minutes in. And then when you add child to that, you're lucky to get 10 minutes. And so I think just everybody in the group understanding those changes, but that we're still solid. Like you can still call me. I'm going to drop everything I'm doing. For you, know, when I was pregnant, when I was in labor with Gideon, my son, in Kissimmee, my friend literally lives in Fort Lauderdale, dropped what she was doing and got on the road at like midnight to be by my side. So that's what I'm saying. Like we don't talk every single day.
Yeah.
But
that's good. I hadn't heard that one.
Yes. So both, and my other friend too, she lives in Kissimmee, so it was perfect for her. But it was midnight. I was in labor and he literally dropped what he was doing. They were both in law school. Yeah. So I think that's like when you have a solid group of friends. Despite the changes of life, the differences, the career differences, relationship status differences, like we're still solid.
Yeah.
So
okay. Yeah. Good answer. Let's see. One of the things that I've mentioned about how do you know that you have a friendship that is flourishing, I think I mentioned giving grace. Sharing grace. And so I read this book called Grace Not Perfection. And I'm going to give that one to you as well.
Okay, yes.
But I read that book a few years ago, but the whole book, the lady talks about like all of these different dynamic life changes, right? And how what I have learned as an individual is that the more I can give myself grace, the more I am able to share a little bit of that on other people.
Gotcha.
Because we're all navigating all of these different changes, getting married, divorce, moving, relocating, like whatever it is, working a new job. And so I like, your response of like being solid. So yeah, just being solid. Grace. I had someone to tell me like having patience is a good thing,
Yeah.
of like knowing that you have a friendship that is flourishing, being able to be patient with the person. And I was like, tell me more. And so we were
Yeah.
able to kind of unpack that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, for sure. I think you kind of look at friendships kind of like a marriage too. So in marriage, okay, you marry this person, but let's just say y'all get married at 20 years old. At 30, you're not going to be the same person. The spouse isn't going to be that same person. And maybe that kind of aggravates us. Oh, you used to
Right.
bring me flowers every Monday, and now you only do it on Valentine's Day.
Right.
So I think it's the same can go with friendships. We're not going to be the same people. And maybe when you first met them. So like you say, giving grace, and it's a relearning too.
Right.
It's a relearning with every friendship. Just knowing that I think I have to remind myself it's not all about me, and other people have stuff to do. And so if you can't,
we gotta get it.
Unpack
that later.
Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. So our topic today obviously is, maintaining connections with long distance friendships. So let's talk about what that looks like for you. Like maybe what was the first long distance friendship that you were like, oh my gosh, long distance in terms of maybe proximity or whatever, and how do I navigate this?
Yeah, so for me, it was definitely college. Before college, all my friends were pretty much local. And so when I got to college, I met a wonderful group of people, my roommates. And then that kind of went on to I was in the gospel choir at USF. And so that birthed a lot of good friendships for me. And so by the end of I graduated in 2017. By then I had like a solid like 5 people that was like my rock. And so, but then of course it's time for you to leave, and so for some, for some graduation, maybe you may stay there, depending on if you really like the place. I stayed in Tampa for an extra year and a half. But eventually people go. And I think, so for me, change is hard.
Okay.
It's always been hard and we work through it. I'm better at it now when I have to navigate those things. But in the beginning, very, very hard for me. So it all started off when my first friend, Samantha, she was like, yeah, God's telling me to go back to, Port St. Lucie. And I was like, huh? Like, it's just us 3. It's been us 3 as me, Phoebe, and Samantha, roommates since we first got there. And so what do you mean you're leaving? So she left, then God told me to leave, and then Phoebe left like a few months after me. And so that left 2 more friends that was in Tampa. Needless to say, I really thought it was going to be the end. Like, I'm like, this is an end of an era because we're not together. People are going to change. And, all it starts off with is like not seeing a person the next day. Yeah. But little did I know, it actually brought us closer.
For sure.
And so, COVID happened right after that.
Okay.
So, because I'm now back in Jacksonville in 2019, right after that COVID. And so now we're still, like, it's like normal. We're on the phone.
Okay.
Chilling like how it would normally be if we were at the house, Okay. So, I in fact, I even got closer to one of my best friends now, Jasmine. And it just kind of happened overnight. And so, that taught me that I don't have to be afraid of the future. Afraid of a change.
Okay.
That a change can be really great.
Great, yeah.
And so yeah, we're all still long distance.
Okay.
Super long distance. One's in Kissimmee, one's in Miami, Phoebe's
Anybody
in LA.
LA. Anybody, which is a different time zone.
Different time zone.
Okay. Anyone still in Tampa?
No.
Mm-mm. Port St. Lucie?
Port St. Lucie. So, she's back and forth. So I have 2 friends in law school. They're studying for the bar.
Okay.
Shout out to them. Yes, we're praying that one and done one time and they'll be done. So yeah, those are like the main people I hang out with. And like I have friends here.
For
like
sure.
I do. The dynamics are different though,
Yeah.
My
connections are different.
Yeah, like my best friends, I tell them everything. Versus like some of my friends here, they'll know stuff, but maybe we're not on the phone for hours or anything. Right. It's definitely like let's get some lunch, let's get some brunch.
Okay, you check
hang
in.
out. We're checking in.
Okay, so let me ask you. So it's 5 of you?
Yeah,
Phoebe, Samantha.
Okay. Phoebe, Samantha, Jasmine. Those are my like sisters. Like,
okay.
I don't even like to say friends.
Okay.
But those are my sisters. Ride or die. If I need something, my child needs something, they are on the next flight.
Okay.
That's and then I have my friends here who I grew up with, Tyra, we have the same name. My god sister Alana. Okay. And then I have like really close friends too. So Lindsay, Nia, these are like my sisters too. But since we talk about long distance, I just figured I'd bring up the main three who are like
for sure. So so you have somebody in LA, someone in Port St. Lucie that's back and forth, someone that is in
Fort Lauderdale,
and then you're here in Jacksonville. And so how did that transition? I know you mentioned like you guys it was still the same.
Yeah.
So even though for you personally, you're like, why are we all leaving? We should all be together type thing. But you guys are now back. You're doing life.
Yeah.
And this is pre-marriage.
This is pre-marriage.
Pre-marriage, pre-mommy.
Yes.
So life, you have this one dynamic for all of you guys, right?
Exactly.
So I'm assuming maybe you guys are dating a little bit here and there. Yeah. You are kind of like working, kind of like not just jobs, but you're like in your careers at whatever phase that is.
Yeah.
How was that? And then the change to like when you started dating?
I would say, I feel like it was pretty much the same because you gotta think when you're in college, everybody got classes,
right?
We're still working and stuff, so that's why I say it still felt the same because it was we just wasn't in the same house.
Okay.
But like meeting up together, talk about our day and stuff like that was a thing. Weekly Bible studies, we were still doing that on the phone.
Okay.
But when I started dating my now husband, I did start to see a shift because
for yourself or
for
myself, the group. Okay,
for myself because
so let's unpack that a little bit because you don't like change,
but I was the one changing,
right? And that's okay. Yeah. But were you okay with the change?
So that's a lot to unpack because I think in the beginning I was afraid to date. When I met my now husband, I was just on this like eat, pray, love journey, and it's just me and Jesus alone. So it took a while for me to just even accept the date. Even after that, I was just nervous. I was like, he's a great guy. I'm nervous. Like, am I worthy to be dating this awesome person? So it really was my friends that were the ones to lean on and was like, girl, you'll be dumb if you don't go with this man.
Yeah, take this opportunity.
For me, I think I was just afraid to take that kind of leap. But once I did and I was like 10 toes in, I would still say as dating, it still felt the same. Okay. Of course, maybe, okay, I got to call y'all back. Oh, he's outside to pick me up, okay. Or whatever. But it really wasn't until marriage where it's like really like
a shift,
a total shift. Yeah.
But it's still very good to know that your friends supported you in this, right? Yeah. And so there was something in him, obviously, that they were like, no, this is like your opportunity. This is the one.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother, not to cut you off, but that's like a whole nother
for sure. Because I was like, that's for another topic.
Your friends having just as much discernment with you because they've seen me horribly date before. Right. In college, I was just going on dates. Just be going. I was a habitual dater.
I'm like,
I was a habitual dater. Like, you want to take me out to eat?
I don't want to cook tonight, so I'm going on a date. Like, let me tell you, sidebar. I do sidebars a lot. Sidebar, though, I remember, like, I was dating as in we weren't exclusive, but I was dating these two gentlemen,
situationships.
And, not so much, but maybe with one, not the other, not both. But I remember going to the same restaurant 3 times.
And pretending like you didn't?
No. I didn't pretend like I didn't. I had to tell my server who was working a double shift. I was like, I'll be back at X amount of time. If you have me, just
don't say anything.
Right. And she was like, got you.
Yeah. Oh, that's that woman call, right? Like, I got you. Yeah, for sure.
But no, it's good to know. So like I have some friends who I have some friends I met in Hawaii when I was there.
Ooh.
And we still connect. And one of the things that we try to do is we try to see each other at least once in the year, just because like we're all stupid busy. But I love the fact that we even made a commitment to stay connected, right?
I love it.
And so we don't always get to be all 5 of us on a call. We don't always get to do a Zoom and see each other. Like one of the last trips that we planned together, I couldn't go because I already had something planned. And so they were
hate being the only one in the group that can't go.
No.
It
didn't bother me, but they fussed at me because I am always like, my calendar is always scheduled 6 months out, and they're like, no one else does that, Regina. Like, you need to stop. And then another friend ended up getting sick or whatever, so she couldn't go. So it was just the other 3 of them. But I love how because we have so many responsibilities, we support that about each other.
Yeah.
But then I have like other friends where, because I can tell you, I have not always been as flexible or as gracious, because I had a friend where we saw each other all the time. We talked every day. And it was really a pain point for me when things started shifting. Like I was upset. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've been there too.
Some of it was when this particular friend got married. And I'm like, you just dumped me out here. And I'm like, we had a conversation, and then and even like up until recently, like I was still upset about it, but then I had to come to a resolve of like, hey, this is what it is, and things aren't going to be the same. And I think as I think back on it, I think more for me, it was less about not being open again, to her getting married and having a baby and just different things. I think for me, it was kind of like, I am always saying that everything starts with a conversation. And so for me, I'm like, there was no conversation. You just stopped.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, she was like one of my people. And so it was like, she was my person. And so as my person, when things shifted, it was like it was almost like a breakup.
Yeah.
And so I heard you mention like you guys would talk on the phone. What is that like now?
Oh,
like how does do you have to plan it? Do you have to do we all get in a group chat and say, hey, are we all available next month? Like, how does that work?
That's how, so our group chat is very much, what day, maybe next week will work. And it's really hard now because 2 of my friends they're studying for the bar. So I don't even talk to them at all, for the past, so I take that. So yeah, no.
You talk through text?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it will be okay. Maybe 2 days later they may respond, because anybody who's been, I've never personally been in the bar, but just because I feel like I had a front row seat of like their law school journey. As soon as the bar started, it's almost like you're going to school again all day long. So you have practice quizzes, different things, writing. So it is an all day thing. And so I remember I just got my job now because I just started a new position, and I texted both of them in our group chat, and I was like, hey, like, I started a new job, da 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 da. I'm so happy, da da. Literally, one texted me back like 2 days later and was like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy, and then.
But how do you digest it? Like, is that okay? Like, do you understand it?
Yeah. So I think because there was, like you said, a conversation.
Yeah.
It was I am not going to be around.
Because y'all are in the know. Like, y'all are actively like, yo, I'm going to law school. And you're like, okay, this is what it looks like.
Yeah. And I was kind of already prepared for it because even with law school, they weren't on the phone all day. Right. So it was very much in between classes. Okay, I'm taking a study break. You available to talk now? So I had already been prepared, but the bar prep is even times 10. So I actually when I was recording my podcast yesterday, I had a guest and she is a mutual friend of one of my best friends, and she was like, is it okay, do you think, to send a text? I'm like, yeah, she's probably not gonna respond back for like 3 days, but I said, but if you send it, that'd be the right time she needs to see it.
Yeah.
So if it's an encouraging
grace
word
too, though.
yeah
So like I said,
but I had to get there though.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. For me, I've definitely been like offended. I'm like, yo, what's up? One of the things that a friend and I talked about was like, when shifts happen, it is imperative to communicate that, because when you don't communicate it, I saw something that talks about like any gap that is left, it leaves room for the mind to, especially for women, to create all of these stories.
That's probably not even there.
That's never. 85% of the time, that's not what it was. And then there's that other small percentage where that is what it is, but no one said anything. Yeah. And so I think like for some of my friends that are like most of my friends that are long distance, I met them like college, through some mutual like family members and friends. And so I already knew what we were signing up for. I actually didn't even anticipate that we would get as close. And so most of them, specifically a group of young ladies come to mind, they are nurses. And so they were, they graduated from nursing school, went into college, working. And I remember specifically my friends Shawnee and Tiffany, they got engaged when they were their first away assignment. They were traveling nurses, was in LA. Okay. And I remember when they went to LA, I went to see them and different things, but one was engaged already while she was there. And the other one, I think when they came back and was in Georgia, got engaged. And I remember like, we would text and different things. And so even now we don't get to talk as like every day, all day, but I still feel very much connected to them. And I think it's because there's like this standard, even without a conversation on the forefront, where we, like you mentioned, being solid, like we are very solid. And I am not a part of the married friend group because I'm not married, obviously, but I still get information. So they'll both text me, or I've been to visit them and they're like, you can visit anytime. If you're ever in the city for whatever, just come by. And so that also leaves a window open for that. I have done a better job though of like sharing with them. So like we can't always get on the phone, and I am a person where I don't overshare. Yeah. Which then means that I undershare. And so when we do talk on the phone, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know all of this stuff was happening with you. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine, it's cool. But as I have gotten like more mature and just doing friendship differently and better, I try to do a better job of like, because they are away, one, I don't have an expectation that is like unrealistic. Gotcha. You know what I mean? I'm like, they both live in Texas now, but I'm like, it isn't. And this is me having a conversation with myself. Like, one is married, 3 kids. The other one isn't married, but she works, whatever. And I'm like, because of how life has been for me the last 5 to 10 years, I'm like, you gotta give them grace in a way where like, if you tell them in advance, like knowing how solid y'all are, right? Exactly. So for me, I'm like, they'll come anywhere for me. It just takes a little planning. And so I think sometimes when long distance relationships happen, it's kind of like the communication, the unrealistic expectations. And there's this level of like, well, because they aren't here, then this gives a person a reason not to share. And I'm like, you can't do that. And again, this is the conversation I've had with myself over the years. So now I'm like, I was talking to one of them recently. We all went to Dallas for Shawnee's husband's 40th party, and I got to see Tiffany there. And we had been texting before because I was like, are you coming? We can room together, that type of thing. And she was like, I don't know, but I'm still planning to come. I got to work that day, but I'm going to fly in or whatever. And it was so good to see them. Yeah. And like, we just hugged and embraced each other. And so that particular link up, she's like, turning 40. I want you at my birthday. And I'm like, I got you. Yeah. And so it was one of those things for me where I was like, it reassured me that we're solid. Yes. And that like, if it's something going on with me that she doesn't know about, it's me and I haven't told her. Like I haven't, because sometimes we'll be like, well, we didn't have the time. To, like, you've been so busy. And I'm like, that's the cop-out. Like, I can literally call, like, I know her work schedule, both of them. I know their work schedules. And I'm like, if I text them or call them, even if they don't answer, I can leave a voice message. Right. Because I know that if it's urgent or if it's not urgent, they are going to respond. And so I think about...
loves those voice messages now.
I do that
Me and Lady Duperval do that constantly. We'll be like, all right, I'm going to send you a voicemail. Yes. I may not hear it for like another 5 days, but...
Right, but it's there.
It's
there. And so I think that's a part of like, when you're long distance, like, again, for me, I'm like, you got to remove the expectation when you've not had a conversation, but also like creating a space. Like sometimes when we talk about creating spaces for people, we talk about it in a sense of like business opportunities, right? But I think in friendship, this goes back to grace, being able to, you mentioned something about discerning, but creating a space for people that allows them, like, people can't do or support what they don't know about.
Yeah.
And so many times we don't share.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I just told y'all I undershare most times with people, but I'm doing better by like sharing what I want and what I can. And when I do that, also giving people the grace to be like, this person, Tyra could have showed up for me totally different had I just said something. As opposed to like over analyzing what I think Tyra got going on.
And I think that's good too, because I think everyone's different too. So remember I said, so my friends dropped what they were doing and like drove down when I was in labor. I probably would not have done that.
That's honesty.
Because I don't like to drive at night.
No, but tell me why. Don't tell me about no night driving time.
I don't.
All right, but
I really don't.
If it was during the day.
Yay, okay. So
let's remove barriers. All things considered, all in a perfect world, is that a part of who you are? And it may not be.
I show up in different ways.
Right.
And I think I had to give myself grace with that too, because naturally, in the past, I'm like, because this person did this, I have to do it too. The same way that they did it for me.
Okay, so showing up for your friends in the same
same way. Yeah. So
you delivered from that though now.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
And that's why I'm being honest. I probably would not have.
Tyra's like, I'm not driving at night. But see, I would. But it doesn't make us, it doesn't make you bad.
Like, yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying.
But I would be the type like, okay, what do you need right now? Let me cash app it to you, or let me deliver the food. And I'm coming, I'll be there by tomorrow. Does that make me horrible?
It doesn't. But okay, so
but there's a lot to unpack. Okay.
Right, so two things.
There's a lot to unpack.
Don't forget your statement.
Okay.
So this is a thing where this makes me think about love languages and friendships.
Yes.
And so being able to articulate what your love language is to your friends, right, is one thing. But also there's a level of understanding and grace maybe that you give to others, because we also have to know the type of friends that we have, right? And so there's this thing called Friend Web, real quick. Friend Web, and how there's like a tier. So like the closest 5 to 7 people you talk to, those are your core.
Yeah.
And then that may expand. Like my friends in Texas, they aren't a part of the 5 because we don't talk every day, but they're definitely a part of my first 15.
Gotcha.
For me.
Yeah.
I may not be that for them. I have to be okay with that.
Okay, let's dive into that. I'm sorry. Because this is like...
Well, I think it goes to your point about you're like at a point in my life, I used to feel like, okay, if Regina drove overnight because I went into labor and now she is in the hospital, I need to drive overnight too. And I'm doing it and I'm pressing myself, and it could be a lot for you. But if I don't do it, I feel bad. And I'm like, you can't do it that way. But you have to be able to, like, I have to know that about you. Yes. And a part of knowing that about you, like, giving you a little grace, again, you got to unpack it, because some of this could be, let's say for me, I'm like, Tyra never responds. Tyra, like, let's say you're a part of my top 10.
Yeah.
That top 10, I'm like, no, Tyra, the expectation is I expect for you to be present.
Yes.
With everything you got going on, because this is what I do, right?
Right.
And you like, I couldn't make it. Like, I couldn't for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So then there's a conversation there. And there's also a level of like, okay, do I kind of like, Tyra, you got it, and I don't feel a ways because I know your heart, and I know your personality and character about it. Or are you really like being a sucky friend?
Right.
Like, are you really being a sucky? And that goes with like the dynamics of, okay, we're long distance. Because if I lived in Tennessee, like, does Tyra expect for me to be there when she goes into labor?
Yeah.
And if so, I need to know that there's an expectation.
Tell me.
Right? Because sometimes people don't know.
And so for me, so my friend in LA, Phoebe, I do not expect Phoebe to take the first flight. Yeah, I didn't expect none of them to come down, to be honest with you. I was just calling them and like, pray for me. My water broke while I'm out of town in Kissimmee. Because remember, I was in Kissimmee. I wasn't even in Jacksonville when I had him.
That's so sweet of you, because if I was pregnant, if I was going into labor, there is a handful of people that I expect.
Well, I wanted my mom. I was like, Mom, you gotta wake up. And my mom's freaking out, that I was not in Jacksonville. So yeah, I was like, yeah, but with them, when they told me they were dropping off.
I'm saying in terms of friendship.
Yeah.
I definitely have I do.
So when people do that, right? So I feel like now I have to, now when next time when that person's in labor, and now I have to drop what I'm doing. No.
I think you have to know.
Right, but I know that, but that's how my mind goes. And then I will get upset with myself if I can't show up for them like they showed up for me. And now you think I can't show up for you.
So let's not do the you think I think know, because assumption.
It needs to be a conversation. So you
try
said something.
Oh, go ahead.
You said something. Okay, because I want to go back on that because you said, oh gosh, it was when you said you may not be that for them.
Yeah.
Right?
That's tough. That's tough to swallow.
It is. So I recently went through that with a friend.
Is it one of the long distance?
It was one of the long distance friends. And we had this conversation on my birthday too. And I was like, why are we having this conversation on my birthday? It was my fault for bringing it up. But I was like, I never actually heard you call me your best friend. Like I've said that.
That's a title. People. So then it's more of the title.
It's a title, right?
Which puts you in a position.
And she was like, I've never called anybody that. Like, I don't believe in that. And I was like, really? And so I was like,
I have a friend who
so what do you think about that? And I mean, you're my sister. I've always called you my sister. And I'm like, I have a sister. Shout out to my real sister. But I was like, oh, so you don't consider me like a best friend? And she was like, I don't consider anyone a best friend. And so my whole mind, I mean, I was like, in my mind, I tell everyone, and I was like, maybe I'm making it more deep than what it is. But I was like, kind of a little heartbroken a little bit because I'm like, I tell everyone
that this is my best friend,
one of my best friends. And so for you to and then I realized I was like, I've never
heard
it was never reciprocated. It was always like, this is my forever friend, my sister, these are my sisters. And I'm like, and she was like, well, if you think about it, a sister is closer than a friend. Mm. And I was like, I just never thought of it that way. So I was really. So I'm like, this whole time, maybe we're not as close as I thought. Like, I don't know.
So I have a friend who, she doesn't believe the same thing either. She's like, yeah, I don't really get into the titles. And so what I will tell you about this friend from me is that initially I was like, not necessarily directed towards me, but just in general, I was like, because I know how this person is, how other people uphold some of her, like her other friends that I've met. But what I will tell you personally for myself is that this individual has shown up for me in ways that I couldn't have ever imagined.
100%.
And so because of that, the title of having to have her agree to be a best friend or not, it's okay. That doesn't bother me. So I think that.
And the same, that your friend sounds like the exact type of my friend. She was my maid of honor.
Yeah. So, but that's what I'm saying. I think it's one of those things where like there's this understanding.
Yes.
And that you don't, one, like I said earlier, knowing the person's heart, right?
Posture,
so I always talk to people about impact and intent. We don't see people's intentions. We feel. And we can sometimes see their impact on our lives, right? Which is way greater than their intent. Like I could do something that was very much well intended to support you, and you like, yo, that didn't support me at all. I feel like you left me hanging.
Yeah.
And so then I got to come back and kind of either apologize or apologize right? And then give like the reasoning behind why I said or did what I did. And so for this friend of mine, again, what I will tell you is that this particular young lady has shown up for me through lying to her. And I know that lying is like, she's like, I don't do.
Yeah.
And I've lied. And again, I've had to be accountable to it. This person has shown up for me with having me navigating like multiple deaths in my family and just like grief and doctor's appointments and bad news and just all of these different things. And so for me, I'm like, I don't care about the title. Yeah. Because she and I know what we are to each other. So I think it's more so like, are you confident in the title that you've given someone. Because again, I've had people as well to be like, oh my gosh, you're like a sister to me, or oh my gosh, you're just this and this. And I've had someone tell me recently, they was like, well, you don't share with me as much as I share with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't overshare.
Yeah.
This person tends to overshare because they think it is a highlight of like them being honest and transparent. That I don't believe the same thing.
Gotcha.
And there are like, I also don't kind of share with this person because I'm like, I don't always feel that they can kind of manage what I have going on from the same level that I manage their stuff, right? Yeah. And that's okay for me. For them, not so much. And so I think, again, to your point, it's like, how do I, like, it broke my heart. I felt
it
like,
did. Yeah. I was just like, but like you said, I really had to sit down and think about literally everything this person has done.
And who they are to you. Like, have they shown up? Like, how have they supported you? And how
I'm gonna
have
be honest,
they poured
Regina,
into
they've
me?
been closer than family members.
For sure.
And so I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, I did have to take a step back. It did rub me off. Like,
I mean, but that's like, honest.
What do you mean?
Right,
you know?
right. That's honest, though.
But when I would trust my child with this person. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm just saying? Yeah. So I think
and that was just different. Like, when you think about those things and when you can pinpoint those things, that goes above like all of that like best friend is very minute when you think about those things. When you think about how this person has shown up for you, how they've been honest with you, how they've like pulled your skirt and been like your slip showing because you're doing it. Like, you're like, oh, best friend? That title don't mean a thing in comparison to, right?
Right.
So that is kind of how I had to, like, again, like knowing a person. It's kind of like when you meet people and you're like, Regina she'll never tell me she loved me. And I'm like, but I show up every day to like do whatever. This is me. I don't say it. And sometimes it could be like a shift for the other person to be like, okay. Like,
but my number one love language is words of affirmation. So that's why I need you to tell me I'm your best friend.
Right. You need to be like, you my girl.
I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, I just randomly be like, babe, you still love me? And he'll be, yes, like when you talking about, I'm like, you just haven't said it in like 10 hours. So, like,
you know what? See,
I'm definitely words of affirmation. So I think I had to realize that too. And I'm like, yeah. And so I think that goes with like, even to go back, because I don't want people to be like, oh my gosh, she don't show up for her friends like they show up for you. It's just different. Like, my words of affirmation is different, right? So my situation is different. I can't just get on the road now and just,
for sure,
because I have a child too. So now I got to find daycare, you know.
I think there's a level of expectation again, you know, with the fact that you guys are long distance, being able to talk about what that looks like. And a lot of, again, I get a bad rap because people are like, Regina, you want to talk about everything. I'm like, yes, because if we've never discussed something in our friendship, how do I have these expectations and I'm never being served or fulfilled. Yeah. And now I'm in a friendship that I'm afraid to address things with. And now I'm also being unfulfilled and I'm choosing to stay. That's abusive to yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah. So for me, I'm like, again, one of my girlfriends we met in Hawaii, and I remember her telling me, like, I don't call people friend. And obviously this came from a situation that she had with another friend of whatever. And so I'm listening to her. And I'm going to tell her this too, because I mentioned it on the podcast, but I remember her saying that to me a couple times. And we would leave the campus where we were staying a lot. We would ride off together and go grocery shopping or whatever. And I remember like 2 months I was there. And she's like, hey, friend. And I'm looking at her. I'm like, now she just told me 2 months ago she don't call people her friend. And so I remember having this conversation with her about friendships and different things. And I never forget, a few weeks before it was time to leave, maybe even a month or so, she said to me, how do we maintain our friendship when we go back home? Because she went back to Tennessee. I was going to somewhere, child, who knows? And I told her, I was like, it's a conversation about what our expectations are. Yeah. And so she was like, I'm like, yes. I'm like, see, in this space, we are forced and we welcome the presence of each other. We didn't roommate together. So obviously we would meet up at the Lanai or wherever. But it's different because we are here literally for 6 months with each other. So we are seeing each other all the time. Wi-Fi wasn't great across the campus, but we still were like there. You know what I mean? Like we were like, okay, tomorrow you coming to dinner tonight? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, well, let me know by such and such. So eventually we had a conversation. I'm like, well, you live in Tennessee, I live here. And I'm like, I'm gonna tell you now, I have a lot of responsibilities that have been paused while I'm here. But when I go back, I'm getting back into the swing of things. I said, but I will tell you that I don't mind traveling to see you. So if you give me a date, you got to give me 3 months in advance. I'm like, but if you give me dates or if you tell me what you think you want to do, let me know. The moment it becomes just an idea, I need to know. Don't tell me when you are like, okay, we're going to do it and I have a date. Tell me like, hey, Regina, I think I want to do something for my birthday. What month is your birthday? Great. And so I told her her birthday is the same month as one of my goddaughters. And so I told her, I said, now usually I don't plan anything until after I know what we're doing for my goddaughter. She was like, what? I was like, I'm just telling you what I do.
Right.
I said, but I will pull up and show up however. That's me. And so we maintained
had that understanding.
And so
sure.
like even now she'll call. We have this thing called car conversations where she drives like 45 minutes to work. And so we'll talk on the phone. And then there are moments where I might not have answered for multiple weeks and she still calls or texts me. And that is how we have maintained. Like we have been, again, it started with a conversation of like, I don't want us to leave here. Right. But again, those expectations, I'm like, I'm busy. So if you're okay with me being busy and like not feeling the ways, but knowing that we're solid, because it's going to look different. Like the way I show up for my friends here is going to be different because we're in closer proximity.
Right.
The expectation, because you're there and I'm here, is different. But what I can commit to is I can commit to come and see you at least twice a year. When? I don't know yet, but this is what I can commit to. And if things need to shift, let's be open to what that shift looks like as long as our communication doesn't die. Yeah. And so that is what has helped that particular relationship and some of my other long distance relationships as well.
I love that. Yeah. I think it's the same. I think I'm getting to a point now that having those conversations like, okay, the way you showed up for me, it may just look different for me to show up for you, but I'm going to show up the best way I know how. So for me, I'm just using the car thing for example. I do not like to drive at night. That is just not my thing.
Yes, Tyra's not coming over at night. Don't get in trouble.
No, but especially like women like traveling alone at night, like from city to city. I'm like scared for them. But I'm just like, oh my God, it's like wait till the morning.
Well, so that's the thing I do. I do that all the time. I travel a lot at night by myself. But it's also like Tyra, you got a husband and a dad.
Right. I can't do that.
And
either.
I have
but
a dad
even
too,
when I was single,
it's not the same.
Even when I was single, I just wasn't.
Let me tell you, baby, I'm getting in my car and I'm out of here.
Like if it was like 6, I'll just wait till tomorrow. Like,
oh no, let me tell you.
But I like 5 o'clock in the morning. That's me. Like I love getting up early, even if it's like.
Listen, I used to fly as a flight attendant, and my god babies did like a business launch, right? I worked, got on the road as soon as I landed back in Charleston, drove to Jacksonville.
Oh my goodness.
Changed, hung out with them, took pictures, supported them, and then I was on call that night.
Oh my gosh.
And so
see, you're like my friends.
Technically, I was supposed to be there. And I remember like their parents was like, you need to go lay down if you're going to get on the road at midnight.
I'm that person.
And I'm so glad I did, because when I woke up, they changed me for being like airport reserve. No, home reserve to airport reserve. So I had to go. And so I ended up going, and it was wild because I had to like actually take that flight. I had to take a flight to Vegas.
Oh, and this is all in 48 hours? Like,
yes.
Oh, my gosh.
And I left. And, of course, they fussed at me. My sister fussed at me about, like, why are you getting on the road so late? I'm like, I wanted to be there. But again,
and that's how you show up.
Right, but right. That's what I was going to say. It's my way. And
that's
I think the biggest thing is, like, understanding what your way is, and like don't compare yourself to other people.
And I had a problem with that in my life, and like trying to show up for other Thai ladies showing up for me, because I had stopped putting these unrealistic expectations on myself, especially with the long distance friendships. And so even recently, like I said, I would never do it again, but because Gideon was so young, and I had to leave him for one of my best friend's weddings. I mean, that was the hardest thing for me. But me trying to show up, I'm like, no, I should. Next time, I just have to bring him with me, and have that sitter and stuff like that, because that was completely. It was a horrible feeling not keep having him here in Jacksonville for 2 days, and he was like barely 3 months. But me trying to show that people show up for me, and so I had to say, okay, next time I can't have these unrealistic expectations. Either he's got to come with me, or I might just have to decline. But I can still plan. Right. I can help with everything and plan everything. I might just can't be there at the day that you need me to be.
Right. Yeah, you just have to do it you got to do it in a different capacity.
Yep. And so we're learning. That's the number one thing I'm learning with long distance friendships is realizing being honest with what I can do, but holding that communication, trying not to take everything to heart, because I never really put into consideration my changes that was going on in my life and how that was affecting them. Right. I was just like, oh, this is changing for me. Y'all are changing, but I never sat and was like, well, Tyra, did you think about like when you first got married and how that was different for them, or when you had your baby, how that was? I postpartum, I was never like answering my phone, like how that might have been hard for them to see you struggle, so that goes with that grace, giving your friends grace, giving yourself grace.
For sure. This has been good.
I know I can talk for a long time, so I'm gonna cut it off
I have to bring you back.
I love to be back.
Look at All right, so we're going to transition into what I like to do, friendship quote of the day.
Okay.
And I have one, and then I'll share it, and then you just tell me what that means to you.
Okay.
All right, so friendship quote of the day says that friendships are like a sheltering tree.
Oh, that's it?
That's it.
Oh. I thought you were going to go. I was like, that's deep. Friendship is like a sheltering tree. What that means to me. Okay, when I think of shelter, it covers you. Yeah. Protects you from, the sun's rays or, whatever. And so when I think of true friendships, especially the ones, because friendships, we can get into it if we have more time. But friendships, especially the ones like ordained by God, where it's just like undeniably like telling me when I'm wrong, even when I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Like telling me, things that I need to hear. Like you said, holding accountable for sure. And just protect. It was many times where if it wasn't for my friends, God using them as vessels that, I wouldn't have done. Or I would have done. So yeah, that accountability, I think that's what it means to me. Like true friends hold you accountable. I don't need a yes person and no person all the time. Yeah. Tell me when I'm wrong. It may feel horrible at first.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm going to respect you 100 times more.
Yeah. Okay.
So
thank you for sharing.
For sure.
And then Tyra, tell us where they can follow
I'm
you
all over.
and the name of your podcast.
I'm all over the place. But so personal Instagram, you can follow me at Tyrah Starke TV. That's Stark with an E at the end. And then my podcast, Taking It One Day at a Time podcast. We're on YouTube and Apple, Spotify, Amazon. And the Instagram for that is Taking It One Day Podcast. So yeah.
All right. So as we conclude Friendships That Flourish, the podcast, we are reminded of the value in authentic connections, how they enrich our lives and fostering a sense of belonging. I want to encourage you to apply today's message and insight shared today. Thank you for listening. Stay connected. Follow us at Friendships That Flourish on IG and YouTube. Stay inspired and continue to have friendships that flourish. I am your host and friend, Regina Nicole. Bye. Thanks for listening to Friendships That Flourish, the podcast with your host, Regina Nicole. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms and be sure to listen to us on YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify. Don't forget to email us any of your topics and questions at friendsthatflourish@gmail.com.